Roommates here! Yeah! Roomies, man.
Mother, the new roommate's here.
Now, of course, I'm a Christian, which means curfew and bedtime is 7:30, lights out at 8:15.
Lynn, I look up there and there's this fellow with his gigantic muscles and he starts talking about panties and tampons. And I was like, what the kind of church is this, man? But, oh well, it was the girl that sings was pretty.
What? Girls can wear tights and long shirts, but I can't? How is this different?
Something you got to know about me is I'm the #1 fan of Texas Tech football. I know every stat. I know where Cliff Kingsbury likes to go potty. I've made plans already for one day you may just come over and me and Cliff are just going to be on the floor making a fort or something.
I like cats.
I'm gluten intolerant, and I'm also intolerant of sin.
Gotcha.
Another thing, there's all this political climate's just getting all crazy in the world, and if it's going to be Hillary or Donald, but I'll tell you this, you know who I'm voting for this year? These two right here. Freaking Cliff Kingsbury and sweet Patrick Mahomes, okay? They're the dream team. We're going to break down the wall in Germany. We're going to break down that wall in China. We're going to break down the Great Wall, the restaurant that's down the road from here. We're going to break it all down. Cliff and Patty Moe, 16.
Congratulations, Roomie. You passed the first test.
Well, my name is Clayton Walker. I'm the teaching pastor here at Raider Church. And when I was a freshman, I had a roommate. His name was Zach. And my mom, because I lived here in Lubbock, my mom said that I was living at home, but she let me live in this house with some friends. One of those guys, his name was Zach. Zach, let's just say he liked to smoke weed, okay? There's no other way to put it, okay? He loved it, okay? He had this old Volkswagen van that he parked in our driveway, and he would pop the top to this van. It was the camper van, so it had like the kitchenette and all kinds of stuff in it. And so they would pop the top to this old VW van, and him and his friends would just get a good bake going on in that van, okay? And you would see smoke coming out of the top of the van, like at all hours of the day, okay? So then Zach started taking my clothes and wearing my clothes to get high in. And I was like, bro, why are you doing this? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, my clothes reek of weed, okay? And he's like, I don't smell it. No, what are you talking about? I'm like, it's because you're stoned. That's why you don't smell it. Like, my clothes reek of marijuana. And so I said, man, you got to get my clothes washed. Like, if you're going to borrow my stuff, you're going to have to be the one that's going to get it washed and then put it back. And so I gave him my clothes, and then I'm thinking, why did I just give a stoner all my clothes to go and wash? Like, that was the dumbest thing I could. So I went and got them all back and just washed them myself. And I told him, you can't keep borrowing my clothes. I don't know if he was getting high in my clothes and then like going to see his family or going to work in his own clothes. But I was like, this isn't going to work. So then our landlord comes over and starts inspecting the house and looking for things to fix. And he finds some things to fix. Well, sure enough, he finds Zach's stash of weed. He threatens to call the cops and kicks us out of that house. And so because of Zach, now Zach's in a much better place right now. He didn't die. That sounded weird. In life, he's in a better place in life now. He's alive and well. But in that moment, man, I was upset with Zach. Like, I was mad because I had to move back home. I was like, man, I got to move back home with my family. Like, this stinks. Like, I'm going to have to find a new place to live. But that was my first roommate experience. And I'm sure some of you have got some pretty wild stories yourself. And so in this series, we're talking, all of you are looking at each other, like right now. Like I said, you got crazy stories, and all of y'all are like, yeah, I mean, you're telling stories right now, okay? Let's bring it back, though, okay? So in this series, though, we're looking at what it looks like to be a good roomie, a good friend. Because, Jesus said The second greatest commandment. So a Pharisee, one of the religious types, came up to Jesus and said, hey, what's the most important commandment? And Jesus summed up the entire Old Testament and all the law in two of the greatest commandments. He said, the number one, the first commandment, the greatest commandment is that you love the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And then he said, the second commandment, the second greatest commandment, that sums up all the law and the prophets, the Old Testament, he says, to love your neighbor as yourself. And so in this series, we're just looking at what does it look like to be a good roomie, a good neighbor, a good friend. And so for the first thing I want you to see tonight, turn to Proverbs chapter 13 if you got your Bible. If you don't have a Bible, you can go to RaiderChurch.com on your phone, on your web browser, RaiderChurch.com, click message notes, the verses are there, the outline's there. You can follow along with us tonight. But let's go, Proverbs 13, verse 20. Walk with the wise and become wise. Associate with fools and get in trouble. So Proverbs 13 says, walk with the wise and become wise. In other words, you become like whoever you walk with. You become like whoever you roll with in your squad. That's who you become like. Now, when I was in high school, I was on the basketball team, and one of the things that we would do the night before the Coronado-Monterey game, that was our big rivalry. I went to Coronado High School here in Lubbock, and Monterey Plainsmen were our huge rival. And so the night before, we were all out doing all kinds of crazy stuff. The dumbest things I've done in my life were on Coronado-Monterey night, all 3 years I was in high school, okay? So one of these nights, okay, we were driving around, I was in the back of a truck, and we had paintball guns, and we were shooting cars with Monterey Plainsmen in them. Or we would drive up and down their neighborhoods, and we were shooting all their cars with paintball guns. Well, then a neighborhood cop, not a police officer, but a neighborhood cop started chasing us. And some of my friends, I was scared out to death, but some of my friends started shooting the windshield of this neighborhood cop. He turned on his windshield wipers. It spread the paint all over his windshield. He slammed on the brakes, and we got away, okay? Now, some other years, I wasn't quite as fortunate. Another year, we went on the loop, the highway that kind of goes around Lubbock, and we went over on Indian Avenue where almost all of Monterey drives underneath to the loop to go to school, and we hung this massive banner, and I'm not going to tell you what it said, but we had a plainsman. We made like this stuffed plainsman in all the plainsman gear, and we threw it over with a noose. We threw it over the loop, so it was hanging down below the overpass. So thinking this was hilarious, we start driving off, and we are laughing. We think this is so funny. Well, sure enough, a cop comes flying over the overpass and pulls us over. Some of my friends were like, go, go, go. I'm like, what? No, we're not going to go. Like, slam on the brakes. Like, so they put us in the back of their cop cars. They call our parents. My parents freak out. I get in trouble, tons of trouble, okay? Then my senior year, probably the dumbest thing that I've ever done in my life, we snuck into Monterey at night. We trashed it with red and gold streamers. We put it everywhere. We wrapped their plainsmen in their courtyard in red and gold streamers, which was our colors for the Coronado Mustangs. And we didn't get caught that night. But there was another thing that we did. We decided the next day we were going to go down and paintball all the cars in the Monterey parking lot. So we skip a class, we go back to school, and the basketball coach is waiting for me and my friends and asks us where we've been. We tell him, and he starts pulling us one at a time into his office to get our story straight. Well, he figures out real quick we were lying. We didn't have our story straight. And so we go to the office. I get swats. I get detention. It was terrible, okay? So the dumbest things I've ever done in my life were on Coronado Monterey night. That night, they were dumb. But I'm telling you, I was hanging out with fools, okay? It wasn't my fault. See, Proverbs says, whoever you walk with, who's ever in your squad, whoever your friends are, is who you're going to become like. And if you're associating with the wrong crowd, then you're going to get in trouble. You could say it like this: your friends determine your future. Your friends determine your future. It's also been said, show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Because you're going to become like whoever you walk with. Whoever you walk with, Proverbs says, that's who you're going to become like. And so you show me your friends, you show me your squad, you show me who you run with, I'll show you your future. Because your friends determine your future. So how can we tell if our roomie or our friend is someone we need to be walking with? Because you see, Jesus loved and ministered to everyone. Jesus loved everybody. He had friends, he had acquaintances, he had all kinds of people that he loved and he ministered to and he talked with. But he only did life, like he only walked through this life with the 12 disciples, with his companions. So how do you know if your roomie or your friend is a companion? It's someone you can walk in this life with. How do you know if that roomie or friend, how can you tell if they're squad worthy, if they should be in your squad, if they should be in your inner circle? How can you tell? Well, here's some ways to tell. Number one, they sacrifice for you. They're willing to sacrifice for you. Like, it's not all about them and what they can get. No, they're willing to make a sacrifice, do something for you, or do what you want to do. They're willing to go out of their way for your sake. They'll make sacrifices for you. Two, they have your back. They defend you privately, or they defend you privately, publicly, and with other people, and they honor you publicly, meaning they talk well of you. When they're around other people, they speak well of you. They're not gossiping behind your back, so they have your back. Number three, they listen to you. Some of us have had those friends, they just talk. They never stop talking, and you can't ever get a word in. Someone who you can walk through life with, someone who can be a companion, is someone who will listen to you, listens to what you have to say. Fourth, gives good advice. And what I mean by good advice is godly advice, biblical advice. You see, a companion, someone that you can walk through this life with, is someone that can give you good biblical advice, not worldly advice, not what makes sense. Because the wisdom of this world will lead us astray often. Because it always tends to go against what the Bible has to say. And so a companion, someone you can walk through life with like Jesus had, is going to be someone who gives you good advice, godly advice. And then last, it's going to be someone who tells you the truth. Even when it hurts, they'll tell you the truth. They'll hold you accountable. They'll confront you about something that's going on in your life. Something they know that isn't going to result in your best. They'll tell you the truth even when it hurts. That's a companion. That's someone you need to walk through this life with. Now, this person in my life, since I was 16 years old, has been a guy named Chris Kalanis. He's a pastor of a church here in town called Experience Life. This church planted Raider Church. But he and I have known each other since we were in preschool. Our parents went to college together here at Tech. And so we've known each other our whole lives. But when we were 16 years old, we got involved in the same small group at church, where we were reading the Bible together and praying together. And we became great friends in that group. He became a companion, someone that I could walk with, a friend that was there for me, that had my back, that would listen to me, that would tell me the truth sometimes, even when it hurts. And I can tell you that today, I wouldn't be the disciple of Jesus that I am. I wouldn't be the husband that I am, the dad that I am. I wouldn't be the pastor or the leader that I am if it wasn't for Chris. He's been a companion, someone I could walk through life with that had my best interest in mind, that helped me make good, wise decisions. If you walk with the wise, you become wise. You make good decisions. You see, we all need these kinds of people in our life. And so what do you do if your roomie or your friend isn't a companion to walk through life with? What do? You can't just ditch the relationship. That wouldn't be right. You don't just stop hanging out. That wouldn't be right. Here's what you do. You play on your playground instead of theirs. In other words, you hang in your world, not in theirs. Because you see, your playground, your world that you're trying to live in and walk in, the path that you're on is following Jesus and experiencing his best for your life. And so in those different scenes, you can invite those people to join you. But when someone who's not a companion, who doesn't have your best interest in mind, when a group or when a person invites you to join their world where you know there's going to be some bad decisions made, where you know it's only going to get you in trouble, like Proverbs 13 says, when you know it's only going to lead to destruction, when you know it could only ruin your life, you got to say no. Man, that's just not the path I'm on. I'm trying to follow Jesus and do what he thinks is best. And so I just can't do that. But man, I'd love to hang out later. Or I'd love to hang out tomorrow. You see, when you've got a friend in your life that's not really that companion, sometimes you have to say, hey, that's just not the path I'm on. But let's go do this tomorrow, or I'd love to do this together tomorrow. You hang out in your world, you play on your playground, and you invite them to come to your playground instead of theirs. You see, Will Curry has been coming to Raider Church for the last couple of years. And Will experienced this to be true in his life. He wrote me an email and just told me about what's been happening in his life since he started coming to Raider Church, and I just want to share it with you real quick. Will said this: in high school, I began an unhealthy lifestyle of drinking and doing drugs recreationally. Pretty soon my life started slowly spiraling out of control. I became empty inside and was constantly seeking for fulfillment in substances and people, but only found disappointment each time. I started college, and partying only got more rampant in my life. On the outside, I was prideful and gave the image that I knew what was going on in life, but on the inside, my heart was utterly collapsing and wondering if this was what life would be about, if it was all it would ever be. Could I ever leave behind the road I was traveling down? Well, that's when Raider Church started, and around spring of 2014. I attended and I loved it. Even the friends that I'd been drinking and doing drugs with came with me, and they enjoyed it too. And we all seemed to get something out of it. Those friends, however, soon graduated that May and left Lubbock. I got caught up in a new group of friends, and then another new group, and then another. Each one constantly dragging me back into a lifestyle I was quickly growing tired of. Life was completely exhausting, and I had enough. I would still attend Raider Church every now and then to recharge myself in my spiritual deadness, but could never quite make myself choose which side of the fence I wanted to be on. Then, summer of 2015 came to a close, and my friends had finally all left, and I was about to begin my senior year. I knew it was time for a fresh start. And so I got into an LTG, one of our life transformation groups. It's a small group that meets here in the week to read the Bible and pray together and hang out together. I got into an LTG and started turning my life around. Jesus gave me fulfillment I had sought after for years. I realized my identity in the one who created me. Well, little did I know what God had in store for me not long after that. This past spring of 2016, Clayton had a message about the nations and turning red countries into green ones. I remember how cool being a missionary sounded when I was a kid at church. Something in my heart just told me I needed to learn more. And so I received prayer that night and signed up for a phase 1 group. God has radically changed my heart and my life this summer through steps of obedience. I'm currently in phase 2, training hopefully to one day go to Thailand long term or send people to go. Praise God for himself and for Raider Church for never giving up on me. See, I think you can tell from Will's life that when he was around this group that didn't have his best interests in mind, they kept pulling him down. He said they were dragging me down. They were keeping me in this lifestyle that I no longer wanted to be in, that I realized was just going to ruin my life. And he went from one group to the next. And all along the way, they kept pulling him back down into this lifestyle he didn't want to be a part of anymore. He said until finally, he went all in with Raider Church. He started coming. He got a new group. He found, in an LTG, he found some companions that he could walk in this life with, like Proverbs 13 says. And his life changed. Because he found those companions. He found that group that he could walk this life with. And it made all the difference in the world for him. It changed his life. You see, here's what you have to understand. Pulling up is harder than pulling down. Pulling up, like pulling others up to this new path that you're wanting to follow, is a lot harder than those friends pulling you back down into that old way of living. It's so much easier to be pulled down, which is why, like Will found out, he didn't give up those friends, but he needed a new set of friends. He needed some companions that he could walk this life with, that he could do life with, just like Jesus had, that would help him and encourage him down this new path that he was wanting to take. So my challenge for you tonight is this, is to walk with the wise. Just like Proverbs 13 says. If you want to follow Jesus, you want God to do awesome things in your life, you want to experience God's best in your life, then like Proverbs 13 says, you need to walk with the wise. You need to find those companions that you can do this life with. And for some of you, like Will, it might mean changing some playgrounds and playmates. Like changing where you hang out and who you hang out with. I'm not talking about ditching friends or not having anything to do with them anymore. But if you're going to walk with the wise, then you need those kinds of people in your life. And for some of you, that probably means you need to get involved in an LTG just like Will did. In a small group where people are reading the Bible together and praying together and trying to follow Jesus together. Every one of us needs those kinds of people in our life. If we're going to follow Jesus and we're going to experience his best. So I want to challenge you. There's a card in your chair tonight. One of the boxes on there says Life Transformation Group Weekly Bible Study. Fill out the card, check the box, drop it off at our Next Step Center on your way out, or hand it to one of us. And we'd love to get you signed up to be in one of our groups. Or maybe you can meet some new companions that you can begin to do life with while you're at Tech. I guarantee you it will make all the difference in the world. It did for Will. Now tonight, I'm sure you've had people in your mind as I've been talking. And you've been trying to figure out, are these people, are these roomies, friends, are they companions or not? Do they need to be in my squad? Do they need to be the people that I run with or not? You've been thinking about others. But what about you? Are you a companion? Are you being a good roomie, a good friend? If people hang around you, are they making wiser choices? Are they making good choices? Or are they just getting into trouble? Do you have your roomie's best interest in mind? Are you willing to sacrifice for them? Do you talk well about them? Have you had their back, or have you been gossiping behind their back? Have you been listening to them? Or maybe you're the one that does all the talking and they never get a word in. Maybe you need to start listening more. Have you been honest? Or you just tell one lie after the next? You see, if you're going to be a good roomie, then Jesus said you need to love your neighbor as yourself. Paul said in Philippians 2, we need to think of others as more important than ourselves. We need to look out for their interest before our own interest. Have you been a good roomie? Have you been a good friend? If not, I want to challenge you tonight to apologize to them and to ask forgiveness and just say, I have not been a good roommate. I've not been a good friend, but I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? Some of you need to do that tonight so that you can be one that people can walk through this life with, so that you can be that companion that we all need in this life. What about you? Have you been a good roommate? If not, tonight, before you go to bed, my challenge for you is to make that relationship right. To apologize and ask forgiveness. Would you pray with me? If you're here tonight and you know God is speaking to you, you know you need some companions in this life to do life with here at Tech. And you don't really feel like you have it. If that's you, just between you and God and me, would you just slip your hand up and say, yeah, that's me. I need a group of friends that I can do this life with. Hands up everywhere. That's you. Just lift up your hand. Yeah, I need those friends in my life that are going to challenge me and encourage me to follow Jesus so I don't slip back into the old way of living, make the decisions I always used to. I want to pray for you guys. God, thank you for every student that's here tonight. And God, I know that whether they believe in you or not, whether they're down with this whole Jesus thing or not, I believe that each person here would say, if there's a God, I want to experience his best for my life. And God, it's clear from your word that your best for each person in this room tonight is to walk with the wise, so they can become wise, so they can experience your best. So God, I believe each person in this room, they're trying to walk a new path. They're trying to turn their back on their sin and the things that were ruining their lives. God, give them wisdom in their decisions this week. Give them wisdom to know the places they need to be and the places they don't need to be. Give each person in this room companions like Jesus had, that will be there for them, sacrifice for them, that will have their back. And God, help them to take those steps to find it. Help them to take those steps of faith, to get into that group where they can find companions to walk with. In Jesus' name, amen.